James Charles is a name that is not only well known in the YouTube and beauty communities, but also across the entire globe. James rose to fame by defying society's beauty standards as a boy who was proud of wearing makeup. And from then until now, he has had one of the most successful careers of the 21st century. But now, when James's name comes up in conversation, there is a more sinister tone when looking back on some of the extremely problematic and sometimes criminal moments that have led to him now becoming infamous. So in today's video, we're gonna take a deep dive into James's life, career, and the many scandals that caused him to fall off. James Charles Dickinson was born on the 23rd of May, 1999 in Bethlehem, New York, to parents Skip and Christine. James also has a younger brother, Ian, who appeared in a lot of James's earlier YouTube videos before he branched off and began a career in modeling. James knew that he was different from a very young age. He was a lot more feminine than other boys were in his class, and has stated before that when he was in school, he was victimized, but he kind of just ignored it. While making his way through education, he began pursuing his creative hobbies, and for a short time he was an amateur hairstylist. But when James was asked to do the makeup of one of his friends for a school dance, both were stunned and impressed at James's skills. So he then began pursuing makeup professionally, working for girls in his local area that were going out to different events or occasions. Although he had already found a lot of success in his local area, James decided to start a YouTube channel so that he could share his talent with the entire world. On this channel, he posted makeup tutorials in hopes that thousands of people would be watching. While James's following was pretty small on YouTube for a long time, in September 2016, a picture of James retaking his high school senior portrait with a ring light and a full face of makeup went viral all over social media, which led James to his first taste of fame. Following this, James was invited on numerous talk shows such as Ellen, and at just 17 years old, he became the first ever male ambassador for the popular makeup company CoverGirl Cosmetics. An advertisement for CoverGirl's mascara went viral because of James featured as one of the models. Even though it might be hard to believe now, in 2016, boys wearing beauty makeup day to day was nearly unheard of, and James was the first boy wearing consistent makeup to hit mainstream, which inspired millions of other boys around the world that had always wanted to be able to pick up a blending brush and eyeliner and just express their creativity freely. However, even though most internet celebrities don't start to run into scandals until they are well established in the peak of stardom, it seems from day one, James was already running into his fair share of controversial career moments way before he ever even had his first brand deal. So let's go back in time to the moment that started it all. James made a tweet explaining that he didn't like his senior portrait photos, so the next day he brought a ring light into school to retake them. This was the main reason why people fell in love with James. However, another makeup artist called Thomas Halbert exposed James with text messages showing that the iconic moment that James tweeted about never actually happened, and he actually just used Facetune and Photoshop to adjust his pictures to how he wanted them to look. This made a lot of people question how much they could trust James, and then a series of pictures went viral all over social media, which presented what James looked like without all of the Photoshop, and people were shocked at how his makeup actually didn't look as flawless and impressive as they had thought. It didn't stop there though, as around the same time, James posted a tweet that had the internet in a huge frenzy. In the post, James made a joke saying that he was going to catch the deadly virus Ebola while he was on vacation, and people were not happy with him making extremely insensitive comments about a disease that had killed thousands of people. The backlash started getting out of hand, and James was facing the possibility of losing his entire career, just as it had finally taken off. So he quickly posted the first one of many long apologies. Here is some of what James says. "It was never my intent to offend anyone, and I am sorry. As a white cis male, I recognize my privilege and would never want to take that for granted, but I fucked up. I deleted everything before the plane took off, hoping that it would go away, which is completely the wrong way to handle problems such as this." Well, even though the apology seemed a little dumb, people soon forgot about the tweet that James initially made, and the whole situation blew over. Now, during this gap between 2017 and 2019, James's career just snowballed in mass. He gained millions more followers on both YouTube and Instagram, and in 2018, he released a signature palette with the super popular cosmetic company Morphe. The launch of the palette was unlike any other makeup collaboration that anyone had ever seen, selling out in seconds. And when James showed up to a shopping mall in Birmingham, England for the opening of a new store with his palette, he had the UK's second largest city on gridlock as traffic piled up, with parents trying to get into the center of the city to take their kids to try to see their favorite YouTuber. But then 2019 came around and a series of events unfolded that would result in videos full of accusations, receipts, and drama that ruled over the entire beauty community within YouTube. In 2019, James Charles was pictured at Coachella Festival with a mysterious boy. James had been known to have never been in a relationship before, so seeing him with a potential new boyfriend had thousands of fans tweeting him demanding answers. The mysterious boy was then found out to be Instagram model and influencer Gage Gomez, who was also, unfortunately for James, a heterosexual man. James finally answered all of his fans on Twitter who were asking whether him and Gage were dating by saying, "Nope, unfortunately, still very single. This boy played me for months on end and is a disgusting con artist. I am thankful that I had my friends with me to protect me." Gage then responded to this in a YouTube video, saying that James was pressuring him to meet up and that Gage had disclosed to James several times that there could not be anything romantic between them because Gage was straight. Yet allegedly, James didn't seem to be listening and kept messaging him, asking him to meet up anyways. This wasn't really a surprise to anyone that James was behaving this way, since he made several tweets and comments in the past saying that he was only attracted to straight men. But while Gage's video didn't really cause much of a storm online, James escalated the situation by making yet another lengthy and overcompensating no app apology, addressing the entire situation of events of his relationship with the Instagram model. James said he left out many details and accused me of pressuring him, which is a blatant lie, which has painted a false image of me being a predator. Everything that happened between him and I was 100% consensual. In the 5 months of talking, he never once said he was straight. If he did, I never would have continued talking to him for so long. I'm well aware that you cannot change somebody's sexuality. Despite James claiming that he knew you could not change someone's sexuality, the internet wasn't fully convinced that he was listening to his own words, as he had mentioned that he would purposely go for heterosexual men. The internet took this huge statement and started to collect lots of clips from YouTube videos that were posted in the past, which showed James flirting with straight men. And it wasn't just a couple innocent comments between James and his straight friend who was in on the joke that James had a crush on them. These videos that were made compiled compilations of clips that would sometimes be up to 20 minutes of James aggressively flirting with several men, looking either completely confused, uncomfortable, or both. And just 2 weeks after the entire incident with Gage exploded, the YouTuber Tati Westbrook made the most unexpected 40-minute long video called "Bye Sister," where she denounced her friendship with James as well as trying to expose him for his appalling behavior. Tati spoke about a lot of different things, but one of the key moments that stuck out in the video was when she exposed James for making inappropriate comments about a waiter when they were out to dinner together. James then found the waiter on Instagram and slid into his DMs asking if he wanted to meet up. The waiter, whose real name was Sam Cook, stated in a video posted later on that he was bi-curious and he had met up with James at a hotel where they made out for about an hour. After their encounter, they would stop speaking and their connection seemed to fizzle out, but then a couple of weeks later, James messaged Sam saying that he would fly Sam out to LA to come and meet up with him again. Sam declined the offer and explained to James that after they met and made out, he had come to the conclusion that he was straight and not bisexual like he once thought. But then, in Sam's video exposing James, he revealed that even after he explained to James that he was never out as bisexual, but just bi-curious and wanting to experiment as he was questioning his sexuality, which is completely a normal thing to do, James persisted on telling Sam that he was not heterosexual and that he must be at least bisexual or fully gay. As a result of this, Tati and Sam both exposing their ex-friend's shady behavior, James lost over 3 million subscribers. And even till this day, he holds the record for the largest numbers of subscribers to be lost in just 24 hours. The impact was so huge that thousands of people actually watched live streams that showed in real time James losing all of his subscribers, while Tati, on the other hand, gained millions. At this point, it just seemed like James had, over the course of the previous year, completely lived his career, as not only did he lose subscribers, but he also had all of his brand deals cut with many of the companies that he was working with, including his extremely successful collaboration with Morphe, and he received tons of hate online. YouTube itself took James off their partner program, which meant that James could no longer make any money from his videos, thus eliminating his biggest and main source of income. But just as it seemed like the funeral was about to be held for James's career and legacy, he uploaded a response to YouTube which showed that Tati was being overdramatic and had made her video to follow the bandwagon of hate that James was already getting and use this to her own advantage. The video was possibly the biggest turning point that we will ever see in the history of YouTube, as James made back almost all of the followers that he had lost, and Tati lost all of the ones that she had gained. However, when we take a detailed look into the time of James's career, we can see that the time between James's redemption in 2019 to the last big scandal that we are yet to talk about was basically just a more amplified version of what had happened in his career, when he was exposed for faking his yearbook photos to the Tati Westbrook video. But this time, James was going to be exposed for something that he would never be able to recover from. And even now, he is still unable to gloss freely through the internet without being mocked and insulted. Just as James was at the absolute peak of his career, in February 2021, a content creator called Isaiah13 went on Twitter and TikTok to expose that James had been sending and asking for wildly inappropriate pictures over Snapchat, despite Isaiah being a minor. Isaiah posted a tweet saying, "If you're gonna text someone, make sure you know their age. He added me on Insta. My Insta has my TikTok, which shows my age," also tagging James Charles in the post. He also attached a screenshot of his TikTok account, which sure enough said that he was 16 years old. Isaiah then included receipts of James asking him to send inappropriate pictures of his body, which he obviously declined, since the entire situation of getting these objectifying messages from someone that he looked up to made him feel extremely uncomfortable. And what was even more shocking and terrifying is that James himself started to send the 16-year-old unsolicited sexual pictures of his body in an attempt to get similar messages back. But James flew straight to his notes app, probably faster than he ever had before, to make one more post explaining his side of the story. James posted his side by saying, "There's a video going around about me on TikTok and Twitter of a guy calling me a and I want to address it right away. The accusation that I have groomed this person is completely false. Last week, I came across someone on my Instagram Explore page, saw that he followed me, and added him on Snapchat. The next morning, I woke up to several snaps from this person saying he loved me and also lewd photos of himself in the shower. I asked how old he was straight away, and he told me he was 18, so I started flirting back. I didn't ask for his ID or passport. He was taking photos of me with another device and had an ulterior motive from the beginning. Later in the day, he said a few things that made me question the validity of his original answer, and when I asked him to confirm his age once again, he admitted he was 16. I told him I was really uncomfortable and apologized for flirting, but he insisted on continuing talking. I told him that I wasn't okay with this. He started getting upset, and by this point, I unfriended him. Because of situations like this, instead of taking someone's word for it, I now will ask to see the ID or passport of every guy I have a conversation with." Isaiah saw this and responded to the tweet, captioning it, "James, we both know I blocked you. You never asked my age. After I told you I was 16, you proceeded to send nudes and told me that it didn't matter. You called me hot and said you wished the timeline could speed up so that I was 18. To prove his side of the story, Isaiah also attached a picture of his blocked list on Snapchat, which showed that he had blocked James instead of being the other way around. As everything was exploding all over social media with millions of people seeing the receipts, 3 other people made allegations allegations against James, saying that he had been messaging them when they were underage. It also didn't help that there was a video of James on the Impulsive podcast saying that his type in boys were not only straight but also younger than him, which is weird because James was only 21 at the time. James finished off his controversy by uploading a video to YouTube addressing the allegations by simply saying he was desperate and then took a hiatus from YouTube. But this was nearly a year ago, and we know that James has since returned back to social media. But what is he up to now, and what is his career looking like? Back in his peak, it would be so typical for James to get at least 10 million views on his YouTube videos, since he also had lots of support from some of the biggest names on TikTok like Charli D'Amelio and Larray. But now James struggles to get even half the amount of what used to be a bad performing video for him 2 years ago. He is also not taken seriously outside of his YouTube channel either. So it's apparent that the story of James Charles's career is one that will set an example for many influencers in years to come, which is that you should always stay unproblematic, and no matter how hard you might try to hide some of your worst behavior, as long as it's online somewhere, it will always be found out.